Yeah.
So,
So there's lots of different negative stereotypes that we've heard about goats. And, of course, people who are regular listeners know that like I have this kind of love relationship with goats because that was my nickname as a mountain biker, right? Because goats climb the mountains well. So that was my nickname. So I've always loved goats because of that. but there's some negative stereotypes about like how they'll escape a lot, or they're really loud, or just unruly, like you mentioned with your ex-boyfriend's example. Why why do you think the goats get that way? So first of all, is that now your experience with goats? And if not, why do you think that goats act that way? Like, is this how most goats act? Are they trying to get attention? Like, what's going on?
that's a good question. So my goats that now are not that way. I would say the big stereotypes are that they escape all the time, um, that they're prone to parasites, so they can't graze. They are loud. Probably that their milk tastes bad. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, it's goaty," um, or off flavored. And so all of those things I have found to be typically signs of mismanagement or, um, something about that goat, their needs aren't being met. So as far as the taste in the milk is delicious. It's naturally A2A2, naturally homogenized, and it's sweet and it shouldn't taste funky. Normally that's a sign of a mineral deficiency in the goat, or she's being kept too close to the bucks. The bucks are stinky. They are stinky animals, but a doe is a very clean, fastidious animal. And then just not cooling the milk properly can also cause that. Um, as far as the escaping, I mean, if they're not content with where they are, they're clever and they're going to try to find a way out. And I've seen far too many, backyard homesteading situations, which are well intended, but it's like a dog run. There's nothing in there for them either. Either there's just one. I mean, they're herd animals. They need a buddy or two. Um, or there's not enough feed or enough of the proper feed. Like, I think it's a learning curve to understand that an animal can be full in their stomach, but still nutritionally starved. So goats have a quite high demand for minerals. They are browsers by nature, so they intend to eat up above them. Um, and what they're eating is stuff that has a very deep root. So they're plants that are pulling up minerals deep from the soil. And so I think they have a more complex mineral need than a grazer would. So we supply our goats with a cafeteria style mineral bar. So they have multiple minerals to choose from, and they're intuitive, just like, well, probably better than we are now. And so they can choose what they need when they need it. And it's fascinating to see that throughout the season. They'll choose more heavily of the copper or the phosphorus or cobalt or whatever it may be. And so we offer them that. Kelp is a really big one as well. Um, and electric fencing has been so incredible for the actual, like, what style of fencing to choose. They're very smart. And if they've had a shock or two from an electric fence, they remember that and they don't tend to test it again. Um, Certainly they don't if there's no need. So we rotate ours in the spring and summer when the grass and the forage is good for them. Um, and we use Premier One electric netting, or we just do 3 strand. Sometimes we get away with 2 strand if we move them to an area that's really desirable. They don't really have any reason to want to be elsewhere. And so I even have a friend who has trained her Nubians to single strand electric like you would a cow. Um, but she also is putting them in really, good areas. They're not in like a dry lot. They're happy where they are, and she's rotating them. So I think the electric fence is really helpful. The one sort of stipulation I would add to that is I don't recommend certainly electric netting if they have horns, because they can get tangled in that, and that can be a really bad situation. Which leads me to the horns. I think they should all be disbudded or pulled. which just means they either are genetically born without horns, or you remove the horn growth at a very early age to prevent like the full horn from growing. Um, so I think that, yeah, I think all of the negative sort of stereotypes about them normally come from a place of mismanagement.
So the netting, of course, is a much more visible fence. The three strands of wire are not as not as physically looking. Uh, what what is the minimum voltage that you find the goats respect? What kind of minimal voltage do you ask for?
So we have 6 or 7,000 is
Six or
right
seven.
around where our charger will run it. If it gets down to like 2 or 3, that's not going to keep them in if they don't want to be there.
Right.
So we have a perimeter. We're on 16 acres now, and we fenced the entire perimeter with a strand. And that's with a hot plug-in up to the task kind of, I think it's a Gallagher brand.
Uh-huh.
And so then when we move them around within that space, we just link to that
Yep.
outer perimeter, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So they're
Yep.
always in a pretty hot fence. And it's funny to see, I mean, similar to your pigs, when you take that gate down to move them to the next spot, they know the fence was there. And so even though it's not, they're hesitant to go through that
Mhm.
space because they remember it. Um, so they remember it.
Yeah. So just for our listeners that maybe are new at this and not familiar with it, um, you said 6 to 7,000 volts. The reason I asked that was because I thought that's what you were going to say, and just so everybody understands, cows can be easily kept in at 2,000 volts. So goats can't. I really appreciate you dealing with these issues because goats can be kept in, but they're not going to be kept in with the little cheap charger down at Tractor Supply. You got to get a
Yeah.
Premier, a Gallagher, a Ken Cove. Put your money in an Energizer that's got some kick to it. You're looking for a 2 joule Energizer, and if the Energizer says we'll power 5 miles of fence, don't buy it because good Energizers never make a mileage claim. Because anybody that's run electric fence knows it's all about your ground rod and the resistance, like weeds that grow up on it and things like that. So that all that has a bearing. So anybody that's putting mileage on them is not a true. They're not in the electric fence club. They're
That's fair.
they're imposters. So yeah, Gallagher is a wonderful brand. Friends, want to dive deeper into our thought-provoking conversations? Become part of the Beyond Labels family today by joining below. For any gift amount, you'll get access to the full uncut episodes.
Every contribution, whether big or small, keeps this podcast going.
So join us and expand your Beyond Labels experience. Thank you.